tune I just heard there?
Yeah. Is that T-Pain in the background?
What are we talking about? Have a guess what we're talking about. We're live now, by the way. We're live. Friday night. It's good to be back again. Cheers, everyone. It's going to be a good show. Mikey, what are you drinking?
Best day brewing, Electro Lime Cerveza, and my backup drink. I got into these through Mr. Sam Roberts here, the Limoncello LaCroix seltzers. So
long names for such.
I'm getting a little crazy tonight.
All right, Billy, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Very excited.
Thanks for coming on. Cheers. Sam and Mikey, good to see you guys again.
Yeah, good to see you too. You've been having some crazy guests.
A young crew tonight.
Oh, you flatter me, Mike.
Anybody under 44, 45 is young for me, so.
Okay, we meet that criteria then.
Isn't it funny how the older you get, like your guide point of for what is young and what is old moves so much?
Yeah.
Like whenever my mom's like, "Oh, that person's old. Is it old? They're so young. They're only like 65 or 70." I was like, "Well, at that point, then what is old? If like 70 is still young."
70 is not young. Okay. It might be when I'm 90. What are we talking about? We're talking about records tonight. As usual, we've got 5 each. I'm actually really excited to see what everyone's picks up tonight. Always excited. I've got my 5. I've actually got I've got a straight 5 tonight. Straight 5. No, this one isn't my pick, but
I thought about doing that, having a couple honorary mentions.
I got one of those.
I kind of have one to show, but you'll see. We'll get to it.
As a gag pick, I thought about doing, just because I know Billy. I don't know if you are, Mike. I know Billy and Sam are both very big Neil Young fans.
Oh, yes,
I was at the store the other day, and they had a copy of I'm gonna mess. Is it Rockin'? Is that like that Rockabilly?
Everybody's rocking.
Yeah.
Everybody,
I should pick up a copy of that.
His like out of he did all those bad 80s records, and that one's probably the one that's actually really just bad.
That's about
it's kind of boring.
Were those contractual obligation records?
To get out.
Right.
No. I think so. The story behind that is he signed to Geffen after being on Reprise, and I guess he did. I could be wrong with like the history of this, but the way I remember it is he did this record Old Ways. That's like a country record.
Yes,
like a real like old school Nashville country record. And that pissed off David Geffen, who wanted more like, Neil Young sounding music. So he just went off like kind of to be like, fuck you, David Geffen, and just did less and less appropriate for what you would expect.
Yeah, there's that Landing a Water one too, which is like kind of experimental.
I was just talking to Mikey, but that one's crazy.
Yeah.
It has this like super 80s drum sound on it. And I was realized the new Rolling Stones drummer is the guy who played on Landing on the Water.
Wow.
So there's not a lot else that I know of that he's been on, so I don't know. I thought that was funny.
Hey, Daniel's here. How you doing, Daniel? Good to see you.
Hey. Legend in the house.
All right. There we go. That's the housekeeping done. Like and subscribe. Help us out. All that good stuff. Let's get going, shall we?
Sure.
Shall we get going? All right.
Take it away, Mike.
All right. Let's do this. Cheers. I am going to start off in the darkness and walk slowly towards the light.
Hopefully it's not a record by The Darkness.
Yes. Although this record might not be as dark as the band thinks it is. Let's find out, shall we? This is a new record of some old music from like right here in Osaka. Very loved band in Osaka. But the singer of this band's previous band is, I was going to say, more loved, especially outside of Japan. People love their 7-inch and comp tracks and stuff. But, of course, I'm talking about Danse Macabre.
Oh, I think I've listened to that before. Yeah.
Just came out on General Speech. It's a discography of all their early material. It's the most Mirror-esque record I think I own in my collection.
Very glossy.
It's like it probably can you see my fingerprints all over it?
Yeah, yeah, I can actually.
I barely touched it. This is probably like the third time I've touched it without the thing on it. It's like just covered in, but that's my fault. Wash your hands, Mike. Wash your hands. But yeah, Danse Macabre. It's the band that Cherry from Zoo formed after they broke up. And
that's right. That's where I've heard of that band. Yeah.
And Zoo is in the kind of Gizm, vein.
Is that how you say their name? Zoo?
What's that? Zoo.
Is it Zoo? Okay, I've always said Zao, but I was just.
That's what I've always heard too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Zoo, but Zao.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. I like that band, so I was curious.
Yeah. So that band Zoo was like more in the kind of the Gizm, that violent, early 80s Japanese metallic hardcore. This isn't like that. It's basically death rock, really. It kind of moves in the mid-paced, absolutely influenced by Samhain, but like with one foot in the Misfits. So you kind of get these like sing-songy choruses in this kind of dark music, which is kind of an interesting combination. Like in Osaka around this time, there's a lot of people who loved the Misfits and Danzig. Well, not Danzig, but Samhain. And there was a lot of people. Well, you can sit on the back. Check out these Devil Locks. It was a big thing in Osaka. I don't know why that happened, but there was quite a few bands in Osaka that were doing the Devil Locks.
Where's Balzac from?
Yes.
Are they from
Osaka?
Okay, yeah.
So the tradition continued with Balzac too, and Griffin, and there was all these kind of bands. But I like this band. I just wonder how they will go over for people outside of Japan who are coming into this with fresh ears. I've seen them live back in the day, and they've got quite a vibe going on, if you can imagine. Very dark, spooky. People were scared of them, that kind of a band. But it's their first single, which came out in '88. It's some compilation tracks, which are from this record, Fear, which was like a Osaka, Kyoto area, like compilation with the rapes, the Griffin on it. Like, look at this. More Devil Locks. More.
I think I heard Danse Macabre because during the peak of COVID, I was in like Facebook group where they were doing it's like a record listening group of a bunch of people I'd never met, but they were doing it was like a Japanese punk challenge. That's where I first heard a lot of a lot of deeper cut stuff that I wasn't familiar, even like kind of more popular bands like Confused, and but I think that's where I heard Danse Macabre. I want to say. Okay,
and like I said, cheeky. I like this band a lot. I'm just wondering, to people listening to it for the first time in 2025, how it comes across. It's kind of very gloomy, mid-paced. There's a cover of Born to Be Wild on here. Back in the day, that was it's rebellion. It's this biker thing going on too. Motorbikes and leather and Samhain and Devil Locks. Big motorcycle boots. It was kind of rebellious back then in the 80s Japan. It was the Bad Boys.
Right. My high school band used to cover Born to Be Wild. Where we did like an amped up, kind of heavy version.
I actually like Steppenwolf, so I don't have a problem with it. But like in 2025. I don't know how this stands up, but I got to say, the best tracks for me are from. I'm going to show a CD. This is not my pick, so don't get any funny ideas about showing CDs. The best tracks for me are taken from this compilation, which is called "The Taste of Wild West." The Wild West being the west area of Japan, Osaka, Kyoto. These are the best tracks on this record, taken from this CD only comp. I don't know. There's just a bit more energy and a bit more power in them. I think especially the last song, just is a killer song. Beast in My Mind, If you're ever in Japan and you see this, get this.
Yeah, I need to re-listen to this band because I don't know if I've ever really talked about it on this show before. I'm a huge Samhain and Danzig Misfits guy. Like that's like a huge. I almost wore my Samhain sweatpants to this this chat we were having. So I definitely need to revisit this because.
You can get it. It's out. It's on General Speech. You can get it easily. For me personally, I'm hoping that this is going to open the door for General Speech to be able to reissue their 2 albums which have never been on vinyl, especially the second album, which is kind of great. That's real dark, like gloomy,
Cool.
quite scary death rock. But yeah, give it a go. But just don't expect Zorro. It's not like Zorro at all. But,
sounds cool. I've heard the name. I'm aware of them, but I don't know. I feel like I've listened to them, but definitely not enough to be familiar with them.
It's not one of those bands that necessarily is the name on everyone's lips when discussing Japanese hardcore, especially from Osaka. Maybe like Nightmare and SOB and other bands might come up first. But here, I mean, very, very important band to Osaka. And,
I feel like in America, there's about 10 Japanese punk bands that everybody loves, and many, many others that just like nobody talks about, that are just like slightly off of that path.
I mean, there's so many of them. It's like there's a lot to there's a lot to talk about. Check it out. It's easy to get. Although I heard that Tom is getting low on stocks, but it's still out there if anyone wants to check it out. Danse Macabre. All right, Billy, what's your first pick?
Sure.
Let's have it.
Mine is Unseen Force, In Search of the Truth.
Great.
Hell yeah. Is that the No Way Records pressing?
No, this is the original wrecking on Turbulent Records, which was I got it from a good friend who was going through a bad time many, many years ago. So classic Richmond way to get a record. And I just really love this record. It came out in '86, and Mikey, like you said, like Grave Mistake reissued it. I just think it's still pretty unknown outside of like the state of Virginia in many ways, but it was also late, chronologically for like hardcore had already kind of peaked by like 80s or first wave, even second wave US hardcore. I feel like talking about Unseen Force,
especially in Richmond in the South. Yeah, I mean, like that's there's some cities that I feel like we're like behind the ball a little bit, but yeah, definitely I would say.
Yeah, and I mean the record itself, it's like it's made up of like punks, but you can tell like there's the lead guitar. This is how you know you're in for a good band, when your band is full of punks, but there is one guy who is very obviously into classic rock, wearing a flannel, who's going to be your lead guitar player. That's this record, and the leads on this record are so good. You could make comparisons, I think, to like Crucifix or like obviously their predecessors like White Cross. Shit like that, COC. But I just really love this record. I always thought it looked fucking cool. Shout out Greta. She's still in town. She plays bass on this record. And Scott, the main guitar player, I think, in this band, who is responsible for a lot of this stuff, still works at Plan 9. So I know who that is. About this record, but I plan to soon one day.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I a couple of my records I picked today I got from a recent Plan 9 trip, and now I'm wondering, like, who's the Unseen Force guy there?
He's the grumpy dude in the back who's always pricing records.
Okay, I know exactly. I was like the other day, I was like, hey, can I look at that Grave and Image record? Like, I'm not gonna buy it. I just want to look at it.
No, he's really cool. And the fact that he was like involved in making this record makes him like even cooler and legendary. But yeah, it's a really cool record. I mean, it's pretty straightforward hardcore, but there's some weird stuff going on with tempo changes. There's a heavy emphasis on like lead guitar playing, especially like blues oriented lead guitar playing, which is really cool. So yeah. I just think it's a record that doesn't get a lot of love.
That's a great pick.
Yeah,
I'm totally on board with your thing about like, especially like, maybe the first wave of hardcore bands that probably grew up listening to like Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, so they had always like a hot shot guitarist in the band.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at a band like COC, like Woody was just like an insane guitar player, that was like groomed on classic rock, like Deep Purple and like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath and stuff.
Like, and these guys from the beginning for sure.
Yeah, and you can really see that shine through in a lot of bands. I mean, I know in a lot of hardcore bands, but a lot of bands from the Southeast, I think, kind of carry that through, and it shines through a little bit more. I think Unseen Force could be very firmly put in that camp as well.
That's a cool pick. I need to revisit that record. It's been a couple years since I.
That's great.
It's great. It's a killer record. I love the cover too.
I mean, it's like such a classic and cool looking record. And I talked to Alex about this as he was like helping, like when we were talking about like, you know, typography or whatever, you know, granular record shit we were talking about. I was asking him about the lettering on this record, and I think Greta actually did a lot of the hand lettering, but then Alex said it was like the old school, like, you know, press and whatever, it's there type lettering. But yeah, everything about the record is just class. It just looks cool. Yeah. Sounds great. Good songs.
Yeah. Hell yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's a great pick. All right, Sam.
All right. So this is a band. I looked on the list of stuff that's been on the show previously. There have been some records from this band, but not this one. I saw them somewhat recently, and they just toured Japan recently. You got this Annihilation Time 7-inch. Great 7-inch.
I don't know that one as well.
I love this record. This is so the beat. It's like the A side is like a 5-ish minute song, like really long for that band, like an epic, you know, like multi-part kind of like thing. And they never play it live. I wish they would, but I also get why they don't. I feel like it's kind of a hard song to pull off live. And then the B side is like songs off the first record with a different singer re-recorded.
Okay.
But I'm more like concerned with the A side and like. But I was just wondering, did you see them when they were recently over there or not?
I saw them when they came last time, which was like, I was told it was 10 years ago.
Okay.
They were amazing then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think they're always great live. Yeah.
When did that 7-inch come out in their chronology?
In between 2 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't see them this time. But I think a lot of people that I know who didn't go and see them last time went this time.
Okay.
Because a lot of Japanese people like didn't really know much about Annihilation Time or anything about them, and then they heard from other people how great they were, and so this time they went because they didn't go last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it kind of ties into what we were talking about with Unseen Force, with like having the classic rock guitarist. I feel like this band really took that to its full like logical conclusion, the best possible, you know.
Yeah.
That's always been like kind of lurking in the background of hardcore, and I feel like they are the band that just like
they do it so well.
And it was great because it, you know, it's kind of like the classic thing people would say when they're talking about this band is like, oh well, the formula that they're working with could so easily just be like not good at all.
Exactly.
And it's just like one of the best bands of the last 20 years.
Amazing.
Hardcore for me, at least. And when I saw them in Richmond recently, I'd seen them before, and I'm kind of like a longtime follower. So I've seen like videos of them, you know, playing in Japan, and they're always great. They were really on fire at that Richmond show. I thought it was like really one of the best. It was great. Seen in 5 years or something. It was just, you know, they're always great, but they felt for whatever reason they've been like doing this reunion on and off, and it just seems like they're just like somehow continue to get better as a live band, even though they only play every once in a while. I don't get it, but that's what I experienced seeing them.
Wow, it's funny they toured with Rocking Sweden in Japan.
That's right. I saw them. They played here earlier this year. They were great too.
And that's awesome. I've never really seen this before, but the singer of Rocking Sweden, he doesn't really tend to talk too much about like the band that they're touring with. But with Annihilation Time, he was going like, hey, this is like seriously amazing. You can tell it's like right up their alley, right? So like,
it's a perfect pairing of bands. They're kind of like, they don't really sound the same, but they're very similar bands, I know. Just in the way they are, like the concept of the bands or whatever. It's very similar.
Yeah. Those two are just perfect match together.
Perfect. Yeah, I saw some lineup. There was some lineup where it was like 4 or 5 amazing bands. It was like Rocking the Sweden, Annihilation Time, Kriegshog, and the fourth band I can't remember, but they were great too. It was like a really crazy lineup on one of those shows.
Electros Gaze is pretty good too. I think they dropped off pretty quickly though. Like
Electros, I really liked I didn't like their early EPs. I liked the first LP.
Yeah.
And I kind of stopped. The first LP feels like, so I was saying like Annihilation Time took the like hardcore band with the classic rock guitarist all the way. And then Electros Gaze just took that even further to the point where it's not hardcore anymore.
No,
So I like a lot of non-hardcore bands, but it just took it out of that world. So it wasn't quite as special because like Annihilation Time still feels like a hardcore band. Like
right.
I think that's a crucial part of it too. Is just like I don't know. There's a lot of times just like contemporary bands doing classic rock, 70s rock. It just can feel very
contrived,
very performative, and just like kind of I'm wearing the rock guy outfit, whereas just like Annihilation Time is also just a fucking kick-ass hardcore band.
That's a great point.
It's like
it's
very natural.
That's a great way to make your hard rock punk band be like get no respect is to wear like a certain kind of clothes. Like,
hey, look at the top row, Humble Pie, and Meanwhile, what a great band we were.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that music. I just don't really need to see people wear like bell bottoms and vests and all that. Yeah. But Annihilation Time, no, they just look like a bunch of like punks.
It's funny because I won't say who it was, but we talked about him before the show. Actually, he was like, "I don't understand. Like Jimmy looks like a crusty, but the band is not crusty. Like
it's amazing. It's perfect.
There are many things that are possible to do in punk, you know." It's like,
yeah, and I mean that guitar player is just such a great. I think at some point when I was on here, we talked about like Dinosaur Jr. He was like Jay Mascis's guitar tech for a long time.
Right.
You told me about that.
And like I've read interviews with Jay Mascis saying like he's one of his favorite guitarists, and like he's not famous. He's just really people who really love music know what's up with him, I guess. That's cool that someone like Jay Mascis would really give him like that much attention or whatever,
like a nod. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
I think Annihilation Time also are a real musicians kind of band too. Like, not to say anybody can't like them, but like I feel like especially it's like people I know who like are just like really into music, like rather than like just listening to punk or whatever, that can like see this band and be like, oh, this band is like really cool.
Yeah, when their records. Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh no, I'm done.
Yeah, when their records were coming out when I was like a teenager, it was really pivotal for me. Where like you hear stuff like, to tie it back, like Unseen Force. You hear all this stuff in punk and hardcore that has like a classic rock influence.
Last.
It wasn't. And I liked a lot of that stuff, but I wasn't ready to admit that I liked classic rock as like a teenager who thought I was punk, and that's not punk. And Annihilation Time was really the band for me that like showed me the light of like, oh no, I fucking love classic rock. I just didn't know it yet, and I just that band kind of brought that in.
Wow, we actually play with him too. Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know he played with Dinosaur Jr., but I have seen. I don't think they're both in the band anymore, but they were both in the band Witch. Do you know that band?
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It was like Jay on drums and Graham on guitar.
I didn't know Dino ever had a second guitarist.
Maybe it was like a Jay Mascis solo thing, not Dinosaur Jr. Maybe.
That would be cool. Yeah. I mean, I know Dinosaur Jr. have done like they'll have guests.
Well, yeah, for like special things, but I never thought of them as being like a two guitar.
No, you're right. No, not on. They did one record with what's his name? Billy, you like him. It's like a Matador Records, like indie rock guy.
Kurt Vile or something like that?
Yeah, they did a record where it was like Dinosaur Jr. and Kurt Vile. So he played guitar on that. But other than that, I don't think they've had a second guitar player.
No, it's Jay Solo. There you go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Mikey, what's your first pick?
All right, this one is probably like the most of a softball kind of pick I have. not in the sense it's actually very aggressive music, but it's just like this is like a real easy one.
Classic.
It kind of ties in a little bit to what Billy was talking about. Because I've been revisiting this band and a lot of this guy's music because he was recently a guest on the Forum of Passion podcast.
Was it Chris Ulsh?
Yeah, it was Chris Ulsh. And I was revisiting for the first time in years the Impalers demo. I forgot how good this demo is. I really like it a lot. It's so interesting to me as also I'm pretty sure this is the very last vinyl No Way Records release.
Yep, I think so. I think it was like the last No Way record and like one of the early Beach Impediment things.
Yeah, it's Beach Impediment 2.
Right.
No Way Records 53. I think I think it was like this and like one of the early Nightbird 7-inches was kind of the end of No Way Records. And it's definitely it's interesting as like kind of like a in the literal sense with the two labels, but like the beginning of one era and the end of another.
That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. I don't know. It's a lot more. It's diverse than I feel like some of their other stuff. Like it's like is really dialed in. There's like one song on here that's like really stompy. There's one song that's like really like kind of there's like some more Motorheady kind of stuff going on in here. I think usually when I listen to this band, I reach for their most recent LP, the Cellar Dweller record, which I feel like I would feel like most people would agree is kind of like a modern classic. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. Like I said, this one's kind of like this is like a quick little pick. I was like, yeah, I have to listen to this one, and yeah, this is a quick one. But yeah, this guy's just in so many great bands. I've never met him personally, but one of those people that's got one of the best like hit ratios for like large catalogs of bands, where pretty much all of them are cool and to varying degrees. So, yep. That's my first.
Cool. All right, my turn. Where are we going? Oh, yes. It's another record, a new record of old music. And I'm ashamed to say I missed out. There's a few different ways you can get these songs. One is to have the original 7-inches. Another way is to have a comp that came out like in 1984. Another one is to have a comp that Sealed Records did. You know, Paco and Sean's label did this band on vinyl. And then I'm so late to the game, I ended up getting this one, which has just come out. Sheffield, UK 82. I had a friend at school who liked this band more than Discharge. We lived together after we left school, and he loved this band, and I didn't understand why. And he used to say, "Wow, it's sort of like Discharge, but there's some sort of sing-along parts in it." And I was like, "Yo, that's why I don't like it so much." But he was like, "Yeah, don't you get it?" It's so funny though, because he was so right. He was like 16 years old. He was absolutely correct in his like analysis of this band, like back in like 1983. So thanks, Steve. You were right. Whether they're better than Discharge, that's still up for debate. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm talking about the Mau Mau's.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
never even heard of that. What? That's crazy. I don't even recognize that.
It's like UK 82 band on the harder edged side of UK 82.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
They had like 5 singles, I think. Okay, so they had like 5 singles in their like initial run, and an LP in 85. But they kind of gradually got less and less aggressive as they went along. But the first 4 are pretty amazing, and the 5th one, a lot of bands did this though. They like a lot of these bands either went like Discharge, like Grave New World, or they went rock and roll, new wavy rock and roll, like the Abrasive Wheels, or even the UK subs went like that. It's like oh, it's the mid 80s. It's all like heavy metal. It's too aggressive. Let's go back to basics and sort of do like rock and roll punk, but with this sort of like 1980s production. So you get like this weird like result. But this band is really like Discharge, but with sort of like angelic upstarts or sort of oi, like football terrace choruses. It's like the perfect.
That sounds great for me.
It's the perfect combination. And like I said, I mean, if they were on Panx Records, which was quite an important label of the era, and there's already like a compilation that they did, and then Paco, from La Vida and his other label Sealed, they did like the first 4 singles on a 12-inch. This is the first 5 7-inches on a 12-inch. So you get that slight drop off at the end, but I still kind of like it though. I like it. I do like it. It's more like the angelic upstarts by the time we get to the 5th single. But it's so funny because I was like, okay, I really did think back, because it just so reminded me of like sitting there in that room and me saying, "Come on, mate, Discharge is obviously much better." He's like, "No, the Mau Mau's, the Mau Mau's. The Mau Mau's are the best punk band in the world." And all this kind of stuff. It was so funny. And then and then I was thinking about it today, and I was like, yeah, he was right. It's like Discharge with like oi choruses,
Mhm.
But I went and did like the maximum rock and roll test, which is like, okay, what did maximum rock and roll say about like these early singles, like in 1982? And I was just laughing like so much because this is what Tim Yohannan wrote in like 1982. He's like 8 songs that combine oi choruses and discharge like lead vocals.
There you go.
And so we were all, well, I was wrong back then. My friend Steve was right. He was right. And
Well, maybe you're trying
If it's in consolation, some of Tim Yohannan's reviews are just insane for the for the 80s.
He nailed it. Fast
No,
tempo, songs are short and sweet, like 25 words for a review, and that's pretty much. Billy, you look like you're a fan of the Mau Mau's.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, Society's Rejects, and I recently got Fear No Evil from Sorry State. Thank you, Daniel.
I don't know like how obscure this, but I thought again this is
I've never heard of them. I'm shocked.
more like, well, but I guess it's still a little obscure, but it's like it's just one of those more like real hard edged like.
It's super tough. Yeah, I had the same feeling when I heard like the Insane, like El Salvador.
Yeah.
Like it's got a lot of punch behind it. Yeah, but it also has huge choruses, which is like a really cool combination.
It is.
I never compare them to Discharge, but I guess in the 80s that made that was probably no one could escape that probably.
Yeah, there wasn't much to compare them to, so it was like
right.
It was kind of, and the vocals are kind of similar. They just have that raw feeling about them, very urgent and real, like brick wall. Just this is the newest way you can get these records. I think you can still find the original singles for not super expensive. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. But
no, I need to listen to that because I've been on a bit of a UK 82 kick myself lately of like kind of listening to some stuff I never heard. Like I just recently got into like that band, The Defects from Northern Ireland. I've been digging on them a lot, and sounds like this is exactly what I need to be listening to right now. So
Defect is more like melodic. This is like
that's very melodic.
Insane, Blitzkrieg,
cool,
hard as nails, and great stuff. It's on Voltage Records. I don't know if anybody. I don't know if anybody can see that. It's super small, but like the Voltage Records logo is hilarious. It's like it's Gabba from Chaos UK. From the cover of one of the Chaos UK records, but it's kind of really weirdly, like kind of like cut off like some of his hair. It's a very interesting choice for a record label logo. So check out the Mau Mau's. Even that the live record's great too, and the full length LP is great, but sort of more melodic. But those first 4 singles are just like top notch.
I think the reason probably I never listened to it honestly is probably their name.
I was just gonna ask. Do you know what the name means? Does anyone know what that
I think
is?
it was like I think if I'm misremembering, I think it was like a street gang, like back in the day, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Doesn't sound very scary. It sounds really goofy.
Like a Clockwork Orange gang, like the Mau Mau's.
Yeah, sure.
I remember like looking at old pictures of them and thinking they looked quite intimidating. They had like mohawks and stuff that were like down and stuff, and like, but now I'm looking at them and it's like, no, they don't look scary at all. But back then,
Daniel had a great mentor. Man, I wish I had a mentor. My mentor did turn me on to the Partisans though, so shout out to both of our respective mentors.
I was just gonna say there was an LA band called the Mau Mau's too, like back then.
Oh, where?
Yeah,
I've never heard of either one.
There you go. Yeah, it's good to have all this stuff like on one big record, you know.
Yeah.
As a man that doesn't like to get out of his chair talking.
I love a singles comp. Yeah.
Yes, me too. All right, Billy, what's your second?
Sure. Speaking of dislike or just like Discharge and much maligned formats, I'm going Disphere, first 7-inch. No surprises here, probably since I'm wearing a Meanwhile shirt. But yeah, it's everything you want and none of what you don't want. You know, it's like when I like want a record from Sweden, this is exactly like what I want it to sound like in so many ways, down to the guitar tone, the production, the song structure, the riffs. It's just unfuckable with, I think, on a lot of levels. And obviously, Brutal Side of War, Soul Scars, Everyday Slaughter are also great as well too. But yeah, I just picked this up from Sorry State when we were on tour. So thank you again, Daniel Upton and the lovely Sorry State crew.
No, I think Disphere, I would say, not counting Discharge, is my favorite like dis band. From that kind of, nobody likes to call things D-beat anymore. I guess that's now not cool.
I do.
D-beat now, but apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Disphere is about as good as that form gets to me. I need to revisit that 7-inch. It's been quite a while, but
it's still got some like what was the band that predated Disphere?
Anti-Défonce?
Yes. I think so it's still got that really raw level of production, and it definitely doesn't have the polish. I don't mind the polish. Like on Brutal Side of War and the clarity on those records, I think the production is actually really sick. But it's definitely, this 7-inch is a little bit more raw, for lack of an obvious word.
No, Billy, I'm not just saying that's actually some of the stuff on the Ultimate Disaster, the clarity of that record often brought to mind to me, specifically Disphere, which I really
that's
like.
definitely intentional.
Like the vocals are so upfront and like the guitars sound huge. I'm not just glazing you.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Typically, when I got into you guys, I was like, this reminds me of Disphere. Which is
that's definitely accurate. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of bands do more like the Disclose kind of thing, more of like the kind of blown out chaotic thing, which is also cool.
Yeah, which is sick too. But
I'm not throwing shade at all. It's just a different.
No. Yeah, I've always been a fan of just like really sonically like clear but not overproduced sounding records, but production like on the Disphere LPs that is clear enough to where you can really experience the full like onslaught of everything that's happening. You can hear every strum, every snare hit, like every kick in the kick drum, the cymbals like really pierce through. I think, I've always been really attracted to records like that.
That's good.
I love the 7-inch. Thank you again, Daniel. Since you're on here, maybe.
I love Meanwhile personally. I like Dischange and Meanwhile are my like personal like top two.
Can't go wrong.
Okay, I got to be a poser. I don't know Meanwhile.
Really? Well, I'll educate you in a few minutes. Wink.
Okay, cool.
I'll tell you about it. You've probably heard a Meanwhile song at this point, I'm sure.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Sam, what's your next pick? What you got?
Right. This one. So, I'm kind of blanking on. I feel like there's some examples I'm blanking on. I was just trying to think of it a second ago, but obviously there's all these notorious early '80s hardcore bands that went not hardcore. Some of them went like heavy metal. Obviously, there was like crossover. I like some crossover stuff, but setting aside crossover, like there aren't a lot of like success stories in that realm. Some people will say like, "Oh, that one's interesting," or like, "Oh, the SSD How We Rock like is like not that bad," and like I don't think, I'm not like a huge hater. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I love that record. That's what I was gonna say.
I should really give it another that record. I used to have.
I've always thought it was like good, but just didn't like thrill me. It wasn't like a personal big favorite, but not like, oh, that sucks. But I get
next one
like
sucks.
What's that?
The next one after that.
Break It Up.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard that, but I've also heard people say they like it or make that.
That's the bad one. Like How We Rock. I know most people don't like it. I think it's a good rock, but let's not spend too much time on SSD.
Sorry, I can go on a real sidebars. I apologize.
I even am such a nerd for certain things, like the Void record that is objectively pretty wacky and just all over the place. I think it's really interesting, even though it's not good, quote unquote. I think it's interesting. But anyway, to me, this is the one real success story of a 80s band going weird, really breaking outside of their.
Y'all are feeling it tonight.
Nice.
I was kind of surprised that nobody had ever done it on this show, but I just think it's just such a, all those bands they were doing. Even the Void record, which is really wacky, ultimately it's clearly really heavy metal influenced in an 80s way, even though they were trying to do it in their weird way. It's you can really hear that. But this October File, I don't know what you would. I feel like it was the precursor to a lot of things, so it sounds somewhat familiar now, but only because it's like proto grunge, proto noise rock. Just like there's a lot going on. It's a very strange record when you think about its place in history. And it's just like, I think it's a fucking great album.
Killer.
Like, no, there's a lot of, like I was trying to say, there's a lot of that like departure material from 80s hardcore bands that like I think is interesting. You know, I don't need every record to be like perfect for me to find something like intriguing or stimulating about it. But this is out of all of them, I can't think of another one that I personally think is like just like straight up fucking great.
Yeah, I think I've been revisiting that band a lot lately. Excuse me, because I recently did a listen through of the full entire end-to-end Voivod catalog, which I feel like you can. I mean, D. Kreutzen was a huge influence on them. Like you can really hear it if you listen to certain records. But it made me reassess some of that later D. Kreutzen stuff as well.
You know what? I like Century Days a lot too.
I need to revisit that. I know I've listened to it, but it's been over 10 years.
Right.
I hated it, but I hated it 10 years ago when I was younger. And less
you weren't ready for it then.
What's that?
You weren't ready for it then. You might be ready for it now, right?
I don't know if I'm ready for it now, but I definitely wasn't ready for it then. But I don't know. I every time I listen to it, it's kind of like just astounding to me what like huge creative risks they were taking. Like kind of talking about like the Annihilation Time formula, how like on paper this could and maybe should be like bad, but it's fantastic. I love that. I don't know. I just think that's cool how risky that feels when you think about like the context it came out in.
When did Oktoberfall come out? Was that what 80?
85 or 86 off the top of my head.
That's what I'm saying. 85 was a year where you got to make some decisions about where you're going, you know, with your music.
Yeah, not many people were making the right decisions.
Exactly. Right.
But Die Kreutzen did 86.
Okay, that's really interesting because that's this. Think about that coming out the same year as like the Unseen Force LP and Age of Coral.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't you have like New York hardcore is like coming of age?
I'm here for all of that, dude.
Yeah, what a great year, honestly.
Yeah, but when you first got into like kind of got schooled on hardcore, people would not have told you that. They would have been like 86 was like not a good year.
I think that's around when I think 85 or 86 was when like the Screams from the Gutter, Raw Power came out around that time too.
I mean, I'm an American. I think like European stuff was really going in a different way at that time, but I meant more like
or a Christ on Parade is another one that I always think of. Yeah, sure, like mid 80s.
Yeah.
Ripping US. But no, yeah, I mean absolutely. I feel like when I was a teenager, I was so like if people told me things were truths, I would believe them without questioning them. So I was like, oh, hardcore died in 86. What? Okay, it's over.
If not earlier.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So it's like I wouldn't even like consider listening to some of these records.
It happens to me a lot with like some of the classic Japanese records. They always sound earlier to me than they are. It's like shit. This one came out in like 87. It sounds like it's from like 83. I guess different countries, different scenes moved at different speeds. So you know, you can't. It's not fair to make direct comparisons between especially like USA and UK and stuff. But yeah, it's funny. Mid 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. Zach Pierce actually turned me onto that record, Sam, when I moved to Richmond in 2012. And I was like, I knew Die Kreutzen for like cows and beer, you know, primarily.
I mean, the 7-inch and the LP are, of course, amazing.
I mean, yeah, I still love those records, but I like really, when Zach talked about records, like I really listened. And I
still love talking with Zach about records, even like quote unquote, like me and him went on a real tear about like Screeching Weasel recently, and I was just like,
he would be a good guest for this show. He knows a lot. He has fairly.
Get him on.
Have you heard the band Social Side before, Mike?
What's that?
Social Side.
Or Wasted Time, also.
Yeah.
Okay, Wasted Time, mate.
He was in both
LP, I think, is amazing, right?
Yeah, that was a Brandon Farrell was in that band. Mark Schubert from Beach Band. Okay. Anyway, that's Zach Pierce. He's a cool guy.
Get him on. All right. Mikey, it's your turn.
All right. So I always try to have a couple kind of more non-punk hardcore records and stuff. I got 2 today. This one is less weird than the other one I'm going to do. So my long-winded wind-ups. So I've recently been I talked to Sam about this experience I've been having. I've been rewatching. I'm a big movie guy. I've been rewatching a lot of late 80s, early 90s, like what I would call like hood classics. I started when I watched this movie Deep Cover. That was cool. And then I was rewatching Friday and Boys in the Hood. And yesterday I rewatched Juice, which was like super good. But so it's also had me revisiting a lot of like late 80s, early 90s hip hop records. And I actually don't own that many hip hop records, mainly because they're just fucking expensive.
They've gotten really expensive in recent times.
That I just usually it's just like if I'm gonna drop $50 for a record, I want to buy like a cool metal record or whatever. And I also very rarely drop $50 on a record. This one I got when I was in high school in like a used bookstore called Ed McKay's in my hometown. But anyways, so this record I was listening to, and it is not their best record. It's their debut, and I'll explain later, but it kind of reminds me in a way of the first Slayer record, where not musically, but in the sense where it's like a group who's like going to change everything about a certain genre of music, but at the time they're still kind of like pulling from their contemporaries, and it sounds a little dated. And that is the first Public Enemy record, Yo Bum Rush the Show.
I've never listened to that. I know a lot
Mikey, that's hilarious. I recently just rebought that because I sold my original. I just rebought it.
It's really good. But it is not. So I feel like people, same way people always talk about Discharge, where it's like it's the sound of like, nuclear warfare. Colors is sick, and so is the song.
Well, it still has like one foot in like 80s.
Yeah. So people always say that like Public Enemy, they're just like the soundtrack of a riot. This is not quite there yet. It's a lot more boom bappy. It's a lot like more like a simple beat with like more like Chuck D kind of just like hanging out. It feels more like a KRS-One type stuff. Like the music is much less adventurous than what they would be doing. Like by the next record, they're sampling Slayer, and the Bomb Squad is going crazy. Which also, I was listening to the first Ice Cube record a lot this last week. But first of all, it does have a lot of direct ties to Slayer, Def Jam Records. It's got that Glennie Freeman cover, which he did a lot of hardcore and skateboarding and punk and hip hop stuff. I like the cover a lot. I really like this back sleeve cover. I love like the headlights and them like from McDonald's, and they just look so cool to me. Really cool Glennie Freeman photo. But yeah, it made me think a lot about Slayer in a weird way of just like this is like one foot in the era before, and much like Slayer, like there's like some reverb on the vocals here. The vocals aren't as like upfront like Rain and Blood or the next Public Enemy record, where it's like really clean and like huge sounding. It sounds like a little more like ratty sounding. Nobody's gonna say it's their best record, but it's a very interesting record. There's a lot less Flava Flav doing Flava Flav stuff on here. Take that as you will. But yeah, cool ass record though.
It's amazing. I love it. I actually kind of went in chronological order with them too, so I have a really soft spot for it. And I live with a bunch of guys who are really into like 80s hip hop, and so
Yeah.
I love that era of hip hop so much.
Oh, it's great. I've been listening to a lot of stuff and listening to like the early Tupac records too, or like,
No, I mean even like before that, like the real like Mantronics and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, so like old school hip hop was the first music I ever truly loved. Before I even got into Green Day, I was listening to like, EPMD and shit. Like when I was like 12, I was really into like, Eric B and Rakim and Africa Bambaataa and shit, because that's just like the kind of guy I am. I was like, oh, I like Eminem when I'm 10 years old. What was he influenced by? And I just go straight to Run DMC. It's the same way I went from Green Day to The Clash, because I just always want to go to the earlier stuff. Yeah, they're such an interesting group in so many ways. I mean, you could talk about them. You could do an entire episode on Public Enemy.
Just that record, actually. But
it's just cool because, like, other than other records that have the bombs, like that the Bomb Squad did, like they did the first Ice Cube record, which obviously therefore sounds very Public Enemy-esque, but almost nothing else sounds like them because it's so inimitatable, because it's so singular. It's a lot easier to rip off like what NWA was doing, or and that's no shade thrown at them because it's great stuff, but this is like very singular music. And I feel like they're still kind of developing their image here. Like, it just feels they weren't quite as like honed in on like the really digging into the Black Panther kind of thing, which is very awesome. Like, by the next record, they are like a force of nature. Yeah. And this is just them like kind of putting together the pieces a little bit more. So
classic.
Cool record.
What's the second one again?
The second one is It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought so, yeah.
And the next one is Fear of a Black Planet. Like, the next three are, like, perfect records.
I know those other three. Yeah, I've never heard that first one for some reason.
Oh, my.
I don't really hear people talk about it or anything. Yeah.
They really don't. And I get it. It's not a perfect record, but it's cool. I think it's definitely worth listening to as, like, a sign of a band developing and, like, figuring out their sound and stuff.
Classic.
I don't think I've ever talked about hip hop on here, but I could.
No, that's great. It's funny because I won't get into it, but I did have a bit of a purge a couple of years ago, and I got rid of most of my hip hop records. And like just a couple of weeks ago, I rebought that, and it was so nice to have it back in the collection because it's such a great record. And the second one, and the third one.
Yeah. And the fourth. I like the fourth a lot too. Yeah.
All right, my next pick is going to be a tricky one to have a conversation about because they're a new band to me. But who knows? Let's see where it goes. We don't know what's going to happen. But I've been really into this label called, from the UK recently, called Wrong Speed Records, who were kind of formed like during the pandemic. And they've been super prolific. And they put out all sorts of kinds of records. And I think this is the third week in a row I showed a record on Wrong Speed Records. It is like 2 weeks ago I showed the AAA Gripper. We can go back and watch what I said about that. And then last week I talked about the band Irked, who are amazing. They're from England as well, who kind of sound like gloss kind of a thing going on. Their 12-inch from last year was amazing. So I'm going to go with another Wrong Speed Records release from 2023. Connection Sheffield. The Mau Mau's are from Sheffield. This band is from Sheffield. And there's something more I want to say about Sheffield at the end of this little rant I'm going to do. But first of all, let's just take a couple of seconds to admire the incredible artwork on this record. I love it. It takes me back, I don't know, somewhere, but here we go.
Wow. Okay. You weren't kidding.
A couple of rats, I think, with switchblade knives, with, studded wristbands.
Wow.
A frog with a jacket. And a frog with a jacket and a chain. A fire has broken out for some unknown reason. ACAB on the pink brick wall. Absolutely, and then on the back, the frog is looks like he's been smoking something and is blowing like a love heart. Nice. Beautiful. You would just buy this record, right? If you.
So what's the music?
I would notice it.
Okay, let me try and explain what's going on here. So yeah, this the band's called Big Break. The record's called Angel's Piss. They're from Sheffield, and it's just one of those records that's like. You put it on and it's like you kind of have to stand back a little bit. It kind of jumps right off a turntable. And it's one of those records that's kind of it's on the cusp of like snotty hardcore and like raw garage punk, and it kind of flip-flops between the both of them. You can't quite say which of it them it is. You know, it's like, is it hardcore? Is it stuff? Is it garage punk? It kind of flip flops around, and it's also a little bit angular. Lots of really like tasty guitar over the top of it. Super like aggressive. There's so much energy in this record. Like you're tired when it finishes. Like Jesus Christ, what a ride that was. It's like 25 minutes long. It kind of reminds me. I mean, honestly, like Hank Wood and the Hammerheads a little bit.
Sure.
In the early days, that kind of thing. Maybe a little bit of like Chain Whip, even like, and then like rip-off records, estrus records, like garage punk in there too. This record just it blew. But I mean, I love the artwork. I think it's amazing.
I can't decide if I like the artwork.
You got to stick with it for a bit.
I think I like the artwork, but I think I need to hear the band first. I'm open to the whole deal. Yeah,
I love this kind of like, it's just like, it's like kind of like the punk version of like, you know, like 80s new wave of British heavy metal record with a motorbike and a really badly drawn something. It's like kind of that. It's like very it has a certain filter. But oh man, it's amazing. A little bit of like Alien Nose Job, all that kind of like really screechy. But I think this band has like better songs. I don't know, kind of catchy. And they're from Sheffield, and they're kind of part of a DIY venue in Sheffield. And I was thinking, DIY venue in Sheffield? Isn't that where this big festival is going on this weekend, where our friends from Public Acid are playing? The Noise and Noise Fest.
Right. Right.
It's a different DIY venue this band is part of, but
lucky them. Multiple spots like that.
The Delicious Clam. That was just a great name. But the other place is called it's the Lug Hole, which is that. Isn't that like Cage's place?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
seems like it,
yeah, that's happening tonight. I think Public Acid are playing in Sheffield tonight.
That sounds about right. I've been watching the Instagram posts and stuff. Seems like they're having fun.
Looks like a good lineup, but I thought it's funny. I was like, wow, Sheffield DIY space, but it's like another kind of DIY space. But yeah, I know it's a tough one to talk about, but if my words intrigue you, check it out. There's a Bandcamp. Wrong Speed Records has a Bandcamp with all their stuff on it, and I've been really getting into this label. They're a cool label that kind of releases whatever they want to do. And, yeah, there you go. Let's have a little look at it again.
Look at it!
If you haven't made up your mind.
I do like a Clockwork Orange thing.
I'm trying to sort of find like more detail. I think I've got everything. The fire and the rats and the
it's a lot, but it's not overly detailed. It's just
not overly detailed. No.
You get the picture.
Not too complicated. There you go. Big break. Angels Piss. They've just put a new single out and a video on YouTube literally yesterday, which I haven't checked yet. I'm going to check that out later. But
nice.
For fans of like Hank Wood and the Ham, all that, you know what I'm talking about, right? That
for sure.
Yeah, that kind of snotty.
You like a lot of that kind of stuff too, Sam. I kind of associate a lot of that kind of garagey stuff with you.
Yeah, I'm like a tough sell on new bands that sound like that sometimes, to be frank. But when it hits, it is some of my favorite stuff.
I think I did a pretty good job in selling you on.
No, I'm definitely checking that one out. I have to because of the cover, but also
exactly.
The description. I think I might like that. Yeah, it sounds cool. Yeah.
Wow, just check it out.
Yeah.
So, there you go. All right, Billy, what's your third pick?
Yeah. Yeah, this is I'm kind of cheating, so I'm sorry, but I felt like maybe it was okay. But it's called This Is the Alf. It's a compilation, double LP. It's got a lot of my favorite bands from the 80s on it. Conflict, Flux, Pink Indians.
Is Chumbawamba on there?
Yes. Icons of Hell, Chumbawamba, Poison Girls, Exit Stance. I mean, this is like where a lot of my shit started, was with the band Conflict. I got really turned on to them by a mentor. That's so stupid to say, but like I don't know what to say. The older dude who I knew who was into cool
old
shit.
Head, as the kids say.
Yeah, who let me borrow like his CD booklet, and I found the Ungovernable Force on there. I went vegan in West Virginia when I was like 17 or 16, whatever, when I was like, because of conflict. But yeah, this comp, it's just really great. I mean, it's got like it's Motor Hate Records, double kind of graphic design is my passion ass layout, unfortunately, but it's got such cool shit in it. The songs are also great. I think my favorite song on here is probably, let's see, I would probably say They Kill Dogs by Exit Stance, because it's such an ass beater. But yeah, I mean,
incredible.
It's just like, I'm sorry, I know this is a horrific image, and I just keep showing it to you all. But
why did you think it was cheating?
Yeah, just because it's multiple bands, you know.
No.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, a good comp is kind of hard to come by. So
Yeah. Also, that is very true too. There's not many misses.
I like the Dirt songs on here too. I was just looking at that track listing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I pulled it today, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'm gonna talk about this record." I recently got it at Small Friends in town, Sam and Mikey.
Oh wow!
This is a second press.
I'm a little surprised they had that. Their selection.
They have a lot of good stuff, but yeah, there are definitely some songs on here where I was like, I think it was the Poison Girl song. It's a song about not domesticating animals at all, and I was like, whoa, I'm still feeling challenged after all these years. Like I somehow threw a song on this record.
Is that comp like a? Oh God, tell me if I'm wrong. Is that like a comp of a comp? If you know what I mean? Is it like a best of more to hate kind of thing?
That's a good question, Mike. I'm not really sure. It very well.
Is it like all the animal rights songs that appeared on like other comps kind of thing?
Yeah, I know that they were very explicit when this came out with the first press and the second press that all the proceeds went towards the ALF and whatever trials they had underway or whatever prisoners they were trying to support at that point. But yeah, I just thought it was always so critical how they introduced this level of politic to their music, and they just fucking owned it, and they weren't afraid to show it and do cool stuff like this. So yeah,
I remember I was at Blanchard's, the local like punk hangout coffee shop, and I saw somebody with the ALF patch and a bicycle. I was like, that's gotta be Billy, and sure enough, it was.
Yeah. I mean, I feel fortunate that I found a lot of those bands when I did, because I really think that they, not to be cheesy or sentimental, they had a really significant impact on me for the better, for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's my pick. So I didn't know if it was cheating to do a comp or not.
No, I want comp. It's like, do I have to talk about every band? Or it's like, no. But yeah. Just hang on. James is saying that it has some songs on it, right?
Let's see. The Apostles are not ringing a bell. No, I'll run it really quick, because it's kind of like 4 or 5 bands. It's Conflict, Flux of Pink Indian, Subhumans, A Citizen Fish, for better or worse song makes an appearance. Icons of Filth, Exit Stance, Dirt, Liberty, and Poison Girls.
There you go. Yeah.
Pretty sick.
All really great bands in their own right.
Yes.
No Crass, but you know what you're gonna do.
Shout out Dirt.
Oh, sorry, there is a Crass. There's 2 Crass songs on here. I was reading those bands. I just missed Crass. Crass is obviously on. That would be a really.
It's just like animal rights themed songs that had already been released, and they put them all together.
Right.
Statement.
Yes. Yeah, and they were like, "This is, this. We're collecting all of what we deem the best songs on animal rights from these bands, primarily from the UK."
Right.
And because so many of those bands, especially like Conflict, were like directly involved with ALF and ALF actions and ALF support kind of benefits. So yeah, it's a really cool comp, really good songs too. So
nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Young Sam, what are we on? Third pick? That's it. Third pick, right?
Third pick, yep.
Third pick.
So last time I was on here, talked about '70s Neil Young record, Doom, also known as Zuma. I'm as far as things that I'm like deeply obsessed with, that '70s era of Neil Young is like that's probably at the top of the list for me.
It's almost a bit in our band about how much Sam loves Neil Young.
Well, our Eric, who plays bass, also loves Neil Young, so part of that bit might be that we can just go off on each other, and Mikey's there just helplessly.
I'll literally we'll be in the van, and I'll be like, "So what about this Neil Young thing?" And just to get them going, and then I'll just take a nap, and then they'll still going. And I like Neil Young, but I don't like Neil Young like they like Neil Young.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's been an ongoing thing where over the years he's just become more and more of someone that I'm interested in, and the more I dive into his discography and how weird it is, I don't like all those records. How could I? There's so many of them, and I love them, and especially that '70s era.
Yeah.
So this is not a Neil Young record, but it's very incredibly adjacent.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard the Crazy Horse album. It's a really cool album. I liked it the first time I heard it, probably 10 years ago. But last couple months, I've been listening to it multiple times a week. It's really gotten heavy in my rotation. It feels like a Neil Young and Crazy Horse album, but Neil Young's not singing, and he only wrote one or two of the songs, something like that. I have to double check. But it just goes to show that a lot of classic rock artists or just rock artists in general don't always credit their band in the way that he does. A Neil Young Crazy Horse album is a Neil Young album and a Crazy Horse album. You go on streaming and it's both artists are listed, and the tours that he did with them were always his biggest tours, etc. So when you listen to this, it's really drives home that they had a really important part of that sound that maybe you can't fully appreciate until you hear an album that's just Crazy Horse. And so there's two songs on here that are directly related to Neil Young. There's the song Downtown, Let's Go Downtown. That's on ended up on Tonight's the Night. That was originally a Crazy Horse song that they wrote, and ended up on Tonight's the Night. And then there's also this song on here, Dance, 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 that was written by Neil Young, and he gave it to them for this record. And that sounds like it could be on After the Gold Rush or something like that. So it's cool. It feels, if you like that '70s Neil Young stuff, it feels like it, but it's also very distinct. And I think it has a certain, the Neil Young and Crazy Horse albums, everybody knows, is Nowhere and Zuma. It's the earliest version of bridging the country rock that was happening in California with the hard rock that was happening at that time. And both of those elements are present on this. I think it came out after Everybody Knows Is Nowhere. So it's pretty early in that whole, but it doesn't predate their relationship with Neil Young.
They are such an important part of what he does. And whenever I see a record with Neil Young and Crazy Horse, I know it's going to be better with a record that doesn't have Crazy Horse.
For sure, yeah.
I mean,
I think you're right too, Sam. I think he always had a really public respect to what that band offered, and private respect, I think, probably too.
For sure, yeah. And I always thought it was more or less a public respect, these are my guys that I like playing with, and they're my guys. But when you listen to that Crazy Horse record, that he didn't produce it or anything. He wrote one song on it, and then he later re-recorded a song that he didn't write that's on it. It just goes to show that they really have a distinct identity as a band that's as much or maybe even more a part of the sound of those records that he did with them. You can really pick up on that listening to this, where it's oh, this is the Crazy Horse sound, even when it doesn't involve Neil Young. It still sounds and feels like that. It's a cool record. It's very if you show it to a guy who's a Grateful Dead fan whose favorite music is 70s country rock, he'll like it. If you show it to someone who hates the Grateful Dead but is a hard rock guy, probably gonna like it too. It really toes that line of both of those things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Okay. Beautiful. All right, Mikey, what you got?
All right, so I'm going to talk about something I usually don't talk about as much when it comes to punk and hardcore. which is funny because I feel like it's probably the most over-discussed location for that genre of music, and that is New York hardcore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, especially of they call it capital H hardcore stuff. Some of it I really like, some of it I don't like, and this was like in the later '80s during more of the crossover period. We were talking about like OG bands, from the earlier '80s, and they start doing different stuff. And it kind of goes without saying that this band has been around forever. But I think this record's really cool, and it to me is their last record that I really connect with. And that is Agnostic Front, Liberty and Justice 4. I picked it up just a few days ago at Plan 9. It was on the wall, and I was like, gotta take it. What's funny is it's like the last record before his voice, Roger Murray's voice, really changed. This was still when he still had that sort of like really unhinged, like very crucifix kind of sounding vocals, as a lot of people comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately once you get to the next record, that's when you get to that sort of, it's the only way I can think of describing it, of that kind of like croaky kind of voice. But this, I don't know, it's a cool record because it's like, this was like after Cause for Alarm, which was like their big famous crossover record. This one's actually kind of less metally. It's a little more straightforward and ripping. I don't know. Do you like this record, Sam?
I've never listened to it. I love Cause for Alarm. I love Victim in Pain, and I even know and kind of like what is that one, and that one's Justice, right?
Yeah.
I've never listened to the one after it, so I really should. I don't know why I just never listened to it.
It's cool. It's the vocals are really unhinged in a cool way. It's got like some more like kind of stompy traditional like mosh parts.
You know what? I think I'm looking at that record now, and I haven't listened to it, but I know some of those songs are on the Live at CBGB's, which I know.
Yes,
I don't know why. It's just a blind spot. I need to. Yeah.
I don't know. I think I don't know. It's so funny to me to think about how Agnostic Front were playing with like Minor Threat, and like that they were firmly in that early era when even like Cro-Mags weren't really doing their thing until like 85, 86, but they were I don't know. And Agnostic Front, for me, they were never like one of my important bands for me in my development.
When I was younger, I've come to really appreciate them more.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've told people like, to me, like Victim in Pain's cool, but it's just another hardcore record in a sea of great hardcore records. Like I told someone the other day, like, like Victim in Pain's cool, but it's not like the Necros LP or something. Which I think I was mainly just being a little cheeky.
I think I remember this conversation, and Billy was there, and he scoffed at that. I remember this. It was the three of us. It was a different conversation with the three of us.
But
I love both. Yeah.
But that being said, like I don't know, I had never really given this one the time of the day. What's this? DJ, is that from DC? Is that his name?
Yeah. I know
he was telling me that apparently the legend, the lore of it I think it was in Roger Murray's book, or maybe it was Vinny Stigma's book, that in like the late 80s, Agnostic Front was playing a show out in California, and that the Metallica Kirk Hammett was hanging out backstage. Vinny Stigma was like, "Yeah, we're gonna call our album Liberty and Justice 4." Yeah. And then, like a year later, the Metallica came out.
That's pretty established as that happened. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is just funny. Yeah, I think somebody mentioned that this has like the crucified cover of it, which they kind of like almost at this point just like an Agnostic Front song. It might as well be.
Yeah.
I listened to a pretty cool lengthy, there's millions of them, but very recent lengthy Ian MacKaye interview, and he was talking about he was one of those kind of, it was like a deeper cut DC band, I think, was playing a show, and then literally across the street, Agnostic Front was playing a show. So he was like, "Well, I gotta go to check in," and it was just funny. He was, Imikai's such a funny person. I think
Gotta go.
people don't give him credit for being a very funny person. He was doing his kind of like New York hardcore impressions, but he was talking about how magical it was for him seeing people still stage diving and going crazy for Crucified after all those years.
Oh, that's cool to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, he was very positive
He's
about
not
it.
always known for being a fan of seeing people stage dive, and
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's cool to hear.
Yeah. He was very positive. I think he just, it's like not on his watch. Other people.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Reasonable.
Yeah. It's a cool record. I feel like people who check out after Cause for Alarm, I think this thing is just as good, if not better. I think I like it better. I listened to it back to back, and I think
agree. And that's my cutoff point for Agnostic Front is that record.
Yep. Same here. And the live record's cool too. But yeah, it's good. It's a good album. It's all combat too, which is legendary thrash record.
It's ripping. It's kind of metallic too, which I'm.
Yeah, it's.
I love
like,
Cause for Alarm. Yeah,
it's fast and loose, but it's got the more unhinged vocals. But then it's got like double kick pedal stuff and like cool tremolo. Like
it's a ripper. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Absolute ripper. All right.
That's my New York hardcore spiel.
I don't have a New York hardcore record to follow that up with. I'm going to go in a completely different direction with this one. I don't know if you... Okay, I have a long commute, like 2 hours each way, which I like to...
God damn, that is brutal.
I completely like to waste by just looking at YouTube and other things, but every now and again, like YouTube will give me a present, a gift of like a great song that I've never heard before, a great band or something good will come up. And a couple of weeks ago, I struck gold with this one, and I don't know why it suddenly came up. But it's been an interesting journey with this record for the last 2 weeks, kind of digging into the history of this band and everything. There's some controversy. We're talking about Seattle, like 1983, like 1984. This is the time period we're talking about. And
is it punk?
Yes, this is a good question. It is punk, but the spin on this record is that it's another genre because of the place where it comes from, aka Seattle.
Grunge.
Yes. And there's a ton about it online on YouTube about this, and I'm going to give my take on it. Anyway, the record I'm talking about is
on the tip of my tongue.
Bam Bam.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know Bam Bam. I don't know Mau Mau. I don't.
Yeah. Obviously, an obscure band which has kind of been discovered recently, and I've seen people apologizing online for not giving this band enough credit for being the forerunners of grunge. Now,
I don't see any flannel on that cover.
Ignore all.
Yeah, have these people heard Neil Young?
Ignore all of that. And if I played this record to you now without any of this knowledge about where the band were from, what year it was, you would just say this is a fucking pretty damn good punk record.
Okay.
From the early era of like US hardcore.
What band would you say it sounds like? I've never heard them.
It sounds like fucking. I mean, it's from Seattle. It got like the early Farts.
That's what it's like. The Farts is like my only.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But the important equation in this band is the singer Tina Bell. I'm kind of getting this the wrong way around a little bit. So the narrative that's going on with this band is that they were the forerunners of grunge, and I think it's an absolutely ridiculous line that this has gone in, because this is not a grunge record by any stretch of the imagination. They were from Seattle. It was recorded by Jack Endino, and it was one of the first things he ever recorded in Reciprocal Studios. So there's all these like little nuggets that if you're not listening to the music, you're like, oh, Seattle, Jack Endino, Reciprocal Studios, and Matt Cameron from Soundgarden was the drummer.
Oh.
Well, that's got to be a big part of why people say that.
And Kurt Cobain was their roadie for a little bit. Blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. This ain't nothing to do with grunge. This is a fucking great like American punk record, and there's a lot of talk about it online. People saying this ain't a grunge record. Like, yes, it is. You can really hear like the green. Can really hear where Green River. And it's like, no, you cannot. Like, honestly, if I played this to anyone, they would not say, "Oh, Green River." Nobody would ever say that if you heard this record. It's just a great.
Yeah, like you could say like the Wipers maybe or something, yes. But like that's pretty grungy.
It's like kind of revisionism a little bit, and it's also. I think for me, the important band is like the important part of this band is like a black woman singing for a punk band in Seattle in 1983.
Yeah, that's cool.
About she wasn't given enough props back then, and now they're trying to sort of make up for it. And or maybe she was like the queen of grunge and all this blah 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 blah. I think they were an important band. They were a great band, and I think she was amazing. She has an amazing voice, but to me, it's cheeky to try and tie into grunge. I think they're a punk band, not anything to do with that's my take, and you'll see arguments about it online. There's like a little documentary about this band and her and everything. There's even like a news article about this band and grunge and like, was this, you can imagine it, right? Have we just discovered the band that really invented grunge and all this kind of stuff? There's all that kind of stuff going on.
A bunch of YouTube videos where the caption or the thumbnail, someone's like,
I mean, I'm a British guy living in Japan. I don't know what I'm talking about. But to me, this is a punk record. It's a great early American punk record. Check it out. It came out 2023. It's their 7-inch from 84 and like a demo from the same session. It's on
I'm definitely going to check that out. That sounds
on Bric-A-Brac. Listen to it and like honestly tell me if you think you can hear like.
Oh, it's on Bric-A-Brac. Okay, well I was about to say, but this doesn't really add up, so maybe don't disregard. But my thought was the grunge thing just sounds like a marketing thing, where like more people will buy a proto grunge record than they will just like an obscure like KBD punk record or what.
I think so too. I and even in the liner notes it's talking about grunge. It's just man, it's interesting. And I'm new to all this stuff and just coming into it now. All these years later, it just sounds like a great Northwest punk record.
Sounds
to my ears.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Check it out. You might be surprised. It's good. It's a good record. And if anyone looked me straight in the eye and say, "Oh yeah, I can hear the grunge in this," no, it's not there. It just is not. It's not there. It's not there. But Tina Bell. Really, it's all about her being a black woman fronting a hardcore or a punk band in 83, 84.
Yeah, I can't really think of many.
Exactly.
That's
what the story should be, not the fact that they think that. Yeah. But, okay, I don't know if you can see that. There's some flyers in there. There's one where they're playing with No Means No.
Okay.
And Skin Yard. And Sweaty Nipples. Weren't they like a band that would play with like Poison Idea back in Portland?
Never heard of the Sweaty Nipples. That's a great band name.
I've heard of Sweaty Nipples, but not the band.
There you go. So yeah, I know. Let us know what you think if you give it a listen.
No, that's cool. I'm gonna check that out. That sounds very cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of started I almost did that thing where I was like, I almost started arguing with people online about it. I was like,
slippery slope.
I stopped myself. I was like, don't do it.
It's always a good feeling when you don't do that.
Right. Yeah. I felt better when
you pat yourself on the back about it later.
What did I do last night? What did I do last night? Oh God, I was arguing about someone on the internet about grunge.
What'd you do this weekend?
The whole weekend.
Great punk record. Check it out. Cool. All right, Billy, what's your next pick?
Yeah, I have a non-aggressive music record.
Nice.
Well. So, Junior Kimbrough.
Beautiful. I love him.
Yeah, I got turned on to this record, I think, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. I was really, really burnt on listening to, punk shit for a minute. Hey, let's go. Hey, he's so good.
I've never
He's
even
so
heard
good.
of this person.
Oh man,
This came out on Fat Possum Records in '95, and I read all of this. Like, this is a whole kind of story about how like the record came about. But this was recorded in North Mississippi, all live, all in their preferred bar that they played in.
Yes.
They had no. I think that they just had ambitions to play live, and for people who were just there in person or whatever. But then they got talked into recording, and they're like, well, if we're going to record, we want to record where we're most comfortable and how we do it. So it's all live, no overdubs. Yeah. It's choice. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you could call it's definitely blues. It's definitely like hypnotic in a lot of ways. There's bass, drums, guitar. He's just got such a cool way of going around the fretboard, and his voice is so deeply compelling. You can't help it; just like holds you. It's like one of those records I put it on, and I think I'm going to do other shit, and I just end up just like totally entranced by him and what he's doing.
Man, I've been thinking about showing a record by him but I just didn't have the courage, or I just didn't know how to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you've got two great ones.
And I've got like the essentials. I mean, look at this. This is him, right? It's
yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like, and him and R.L. Burnside too is another like North Mississippi blues artist who is also just like phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, like that might be my second favorite next to this one.
All right.
But yeah, Fat Possum Records, doing the Lord's work, like making sure these see the light of day. Because I'm really, really interested in like geographic sounds in music. And I think that is a thing that is like dying in a lot of ways, just like with the prevalence of the internet. And there used to be geographic sounds for hardcore and punk, and like Sam and I know we've had that conversation a lot. But this is a sound that is like really bound to a certain geographic area in the American South, and it's almost wholly contained. It's like there are imitators, but they are so laughably off because they just don't have the secret sauce, and like these dudes just fucking got it. I don't know.
It's if anyone wants to just check out like one song and go from there, like that, like Meet Me in the City, just him and the acoustic guitar, man. It's just like he's so fucking good. Yeah. I'm really glad you're familiar, Mike. But like, I don't know if Mikey, you and Sam are, but
I'm not. I like blues music quite a bit.
I've heard him some, but not a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's just fucking cool. And it's even cooler that he was like, I don't give a fuck about making records. I just want to play because I love playing. And then these dudes were like, okay, hear us out. We'll make a record for you. All you have to do is just play in the room where you normally play. And then I think his career as a recording artist started to gain, traction. He became more interested, I think, at least from my perspective, about putting records out and making vinyl and shit. But
some of the stuff just like him in the room, and you could just like, it's so raw and like real.
You can like feel like the cigarette smoke. You can just like feel like you're sitting there with like a beer bottle, and it's just real. And yeah, Mike, like you said, it's like super raw, but it's like hypnotic in a lot of ways too.
And that thing with the guitar where it's like he's making rhythms with his guitar and stuff. Like,
yeah, I actually read I would refresh myself on this record. Like I read the back of it before I came on here, and a lot of his songs didn't have endings, like proper endings for the recording, because he would just stop when people stopped dancing. So there were like, he would just like keep going until basically the crowd was like, all right, we're good. Next one, please. Yeah.
Well, I do just want to say before we move on to the next one, speaking of blues stuff, just Mike, I do want to give you a shout out for when you had the Jerry A episode recently. I've been on a huge Howlin' Wolf tear ever since I was already a fan. That was like my gateway to blues music when I was a teenager, was Howlin' Wolf. And ever since he plugged that record, I've just been revisiting the hell out of Howlin' Wolf. So
it's so good. That's a great pair. I did not see that coming. That's so good. Beautiful. Yeah. That was a jump out of the chair one for me.
Yeah, oh, cool. Well, I was worried about it because I was going to talk about a Yo La Tengo record, and I was like, man, like it's really hard to convince people this isn't NPR music, and I was like, but this is real shit, and like I will make the argument any other day that Yo La Tengo is the real shit, but I didn't really have the energy tonight to make that argument. This just speaks for itself because it's legit as it gets, really.
Which Yo La Tengo record were you thinking of?
Electric.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my favorite, I think. This week it is. But yeah, I think that, it's just, I don't know. This is the one I was like, I listened to it like earlier this week, and
I'm definitely throwing that on. That and the Metal Mouths are at the top of my. I need to check these out.
Yeah, it's just incredible, absolutely incredible.
It's good for the morning. It's good for the evening. It's good when you're the only one awake in the van at night. I think I put this record on and Patrick came in and made fun of me, so that probably tracks. But I'm kidding. But
that means it's good.
It's good every day, every day, every time. So no, I'm sorry. That was a Doc Boggs record, which is like a hillbilly musician that I like, but not Junior Kimbrough. But yeah,
I think we can talk about this for a long time. But there's a lot of other good blues stuff on Fat Possum too. But I think he's the king. Yeah. Junior Kimbrough is the king.
Yeah, him and R.L. Burnside are just like they're so. And R.L. Burnside's son.
I was just thinking that. Cedric Burnside.
Yeah,
he has some good records. Yeah, I know that stuff.
Yeah, that North Mississippi sound is, like I said, it's just really cool because it's like so geographically confined and it's not really imitatable by other people without being incredibly obvious that you are not from there and trying to make a sound that is from a certain place.
Right, which is cool that Cedric Burnside stuff takes that sound and makes it a little more modern. Like it's a little harder sounding or something.
It definitely has a tinge of like modernity to it. Yeah, like you said. Production wise too, I think is like
just the drumming is more just like rock, almost like hard rock drumming as opposed to blues, whereas the riffs are blues riffs. Yeah, I like the Cedric Burnside stuff a lot. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. All right, Sam, what's your fourth pick? What you got?
I was trying to think of something semi-recent. Just like I don't have anything that's like a new release, but within the last year, local band that I like a lot. But I also get, I don't have a ton of friends that are as into them as I am, and I understand why. It's this band, the Archaics, from Richmond.
Very polarizing band for some reason.
Well, I get it. It's a big fan, and I'm friends with some of the people in the band and all that. I get why people don't like them. Have you heard of them at all, Mike?
No, first time.
Okay,
first time hearing.
So they've been around probably like 10 to 15 years, somewhere around then. They've been around a while. Their early records are. We were talking before about like garage punk, and Mikey said like, "Oh, Sam, you like a lot of garage stuff," and I said then like. When I like it, it's some of my favorite music, but there's a lot. It's a kind of a low percentage genre for me in terms of like modern garage music,
right?
Especially like
me and death metal.
Same. even more so with death metal. But yeah, it's a great like comparison for sure. So this band, when they started out, they were a little like one could call it gimmicky in that it sounded like really. Down the line, like it really sounds like 60s garage rock, especially like post British invasion. And I'm not like a scholar or like a nerd about that kind of stuff. I like what I've heard. I have some like mixtapes and comps that I like, and I like that sound, but I'm not super familiar with it. But it sounded like kind of an imitation of like Nuggets, I guess, or like it was like. But they wrote great songs, so I always liked them. I always loved going to see them because it's just like. Such a good version of that sound. And this new album that came out last year feels like they've been doing that for like 10 years and they finally broken out of it and they're doing like a twist on it a little more. Okay. They always wrote really great songs, but it was like if somebody was to say like that's a retro sounding band, can't argue. It is, and this just seems like they've taken it maybe into the early 70s or something, going from being like a 60s garage band to like stuff on this new album kind of reminds me of like Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed, Stones, then also like After the Gold Rush and Everybody Knows It's Nowhere, Neil Young. Where it's like rock and roll, maybe not quite full on classic rock. Rock and roll is getting a little darker or something. It's really cool how they've evolved a 60s sound in a distinct way. Like, I don't even know how one would go about that, but it's giving like, you know what I mean? Like that darker kind of like the 60s is winding up and things are starting to feel dark and weird. They've brought that, which is maybe appropriate for our times in a way, of like that early 70s vibe is like maybe a similar, talking to like my parents or whatever would say that culturally maybe we're in a similar place that America was at that time. And you could make all this, but I just think it's a cool, unique record. It's clearly rooted in the past, but it has a very distinct, like, unique sound to it. And it's kind of a stacked lineup of like players of people who are, I guess it's mostly people who are in like screamo bands, but like early, like Page 99, City of Caterpillar, and then the drummer is also in like Triac, which is like a grindcore band. So that's part of what I like about it, is it's like extreme music people making like laid back garage kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I never realized that.
Me neither.
People.
Yeah.
It's bad as news to me, but I didn't see that coming.
It's an interesting element of the band. I mean, I didn't want to lead with it because I feel like that's what a lot of people hear, is that it's those guys and it sounds like the 60s, and people are just like not interested based on both those things. But
right,
they're a great band and they've really come into their own slowly but surely. Like they didn't try and like come out of the gate with some like unique take on 60s garage. They kind of started as like a really like middle of the road like retro band and have slowly expanded, and this newer record came out last year, I think is like their first kind of their own style. Yeah,
cool. Nice, check it out.
All right, so for my fourth pick is my most it's my one that's probably my most out there one as well. I picked this up also from Plan 9. This is the last one I picked up for my recent excursion there. I guess I don't have as much wind up. I'll kind of elaborate on it, but it is the official soundtrack to the classic anime film Akira. So I wouldn't say I am an anime guy, but I'm a movie guy, and this is one of the great pieces of animation of all time for anybody who hasn't seen it. I feel like most people, it's kind of one of those movies kind of like Ghost in the Shell or My Neighbor Totoro, where it kind of transcends the medium a little bit into just being like truly great pieces of film. But so it's anybody who has, it's like a cyberpunk, really, really important movie about kind of that really cemented the idea of what Japanese cyberpunk is. It's got elements of like body horror. A couple years ago, I read all the manga, and it was also incredible. It's kind of a cheapo. I don't think it's technically a bootleg, but it's pretty cheaply made. You can't really see it probably on here. It's a little blurry looking on the print. All the back is in Japanese, so I can't really tell you what it says. It's on Victory Records, I assume, not that Victory Records. So what's really interesting about it, in terms of the music, is it was done by this Japanese collective. I'm gonna have to say the name slowly so I don't butcher it. Is Gaino Yamashirogumi.
I did not know that. They have some wild records.
Yes, it's like a collective of like dozens and dozens of people. Like apparently the guy who made this is also like a molecular biologist by day. So the music on this, what's really interesting to me about it is when you think of visions of the future of science fiction and cyberpunk, you think of Blade Runner, you think of synthesizers or Tangerine Dream type stuff, and this did the exact opposite, where it's doing this traditional form of Indonesian music called gamelan, where it's all these really weird percussive like polyrhythms in it, where it's very like, I don't know, the way they use it, it's very like, it just feels so like tribal, but also like it's from another planet or something. Because I was reading that like the music gamelan, they use different tunings to where they're not technically hitting any of that traditional notes in a regular Western music scale, so it feels like very odd. And a lot of the music of like the lyrics is just saying the names of the characters. So there's a character named Tetsuo, Tetsuo, but which sounds silly, but it's so sick. The opening 15 minutes of this movie, I think, says all you need to know about the music and the visuals in the film. Mike, I assume you've seen it. It sounds like
the reason I was like waving my hands around like a maniac when he showed it was because I went to the theatre, the cinema in England, in Bristol, when it came out in England.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Probably like early, like 90 probably or something like that, maybe?
I'm not sure. It was either before it came out, before the first time I came to Japan, which was 1990. It could have been really early 1990 or late 89. I don't remember, but
yeah, I think it came out here. I know it had like a huge impact when it hit.
I mean, we went to see it in a small like independent theater. There wasn't that many people there, but we definitely, me and my girlfriend at the time went to see it on the big screen, and people were like, "What are you doing? Why are you going?" Why are you going to see these weird like Japanese cartoons and stuff?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Why do you see a Japanese cartoon? I'm very jealous of you getting to have. Damn, we scared them away. I'm just
there. Sorry.
It's just like one of those things where it's just like there's nothing that quite was like this. I'm jealous of anybody who got to see this in the cinema. Of just
it was definitely a big deal at the time.
Like, this is crazy.
And another thing, the reason why I was doing that is because even to this day, like every now and again, when I'm kind of talking with my junior high school students, like Japanese kids, they will ask me, Mike Sensei, like, what's your favorite anime? And I don't watch anime. I don't have a clue. I always say Akira. Every time. And every now and again, one kid will know, yes, that's a kind of a classic kind of thing. And another is like, well, I never heard of it. And I was like, yeah, it's from the 80s.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So to this day, in fact, just 3 days ago, I said my favorite anime is Akira. I told a kid that.
It's so cool, and just like it's funny as a piece of narrative storytelling. The movie is almost complete nonsense once you get halfway through it, because like it was directed and written by the guy who made the manga, and the manga is really this sprawling epic. Post-apocalyptic epic that really goes through this massive story, and the movie is really like squishes together parts of it.
Right.
So it doesn't really do justice to the story, but it does justice as just like a piece of visual storytelling, and what animation is capable of looking like. Like I won't go all into like the animation dorkery of it, but like the use of light and the way that they use light, especially in the opening sequence, is incredible. You can see a little bit of it on here. That's like the lights from the motorcycles, because it's this incredible motorcycle chase sequence.
Yes.
Through Neo Tokyo.
Yes.
And it is like nothing else. It's like a lot of things, because it's super, super influential, but it's like nothing else that came before it.
Right.
And it's, I don't know. Have you guys seen this movie, Billy and Sam?
I have, yeah. It's been a little while. I'm thinking I might watch it again soon, because it's been.
I'm compelled. I would like to watch it now. Yeah.
Definitely recommend the books too, but just as just a cool ass movie, and the music is just very interesting. Like I said, it's just, you would expect it to be all synthesizers and like we're in the future, but it's instead like using older traditional music to show this different sort of vision of the future. So
Right.
cool ass movie. Yeah,
that's an amazing pick. I didn't expect that. Wow.
Yeah,
I haven't actually seen the movie since that day. I've not rewatched it since. So.
Pop it on, have a couple beers or whatever, and you'll have a great, especially the opening sequence.
I think I do remember being like, not bored. It's not the right word, but I remember that was like, how do you follow that? Like the opening sequence.
It gets very freeform in the back half, and it's a lot of like body horror stuff of like my body's turning into this weird monster and stuff. But like the opening sequence is just like it's just a motorcycle chase through the city, and it's just like deeply captivating. It's cool stuff. I almost got when I was at the record store. They had this and the soundtrack to the original Godzilla film. I was like, I'm gonna go Akira, I'm gonna go to Godzilla, but I'm pleased with my purchase.
Nice. Well, that's a hard one to follow, and the only way to follow up that is by going with some mid-90s French punk. So that's what I'm
cool.
So there you go. That's what I'm going to do. So this is a
last round.
Last round. That was a great pick. That's super cool. But yeah, so I think I've mentioned this before, but in the 90s, I was living in this like crusty squat with like ex-members of the Amoebics and future members of Chaos UK and all sorts of like smelly characters, me being one of them. And but the funny thing was there was like 2 or 3 of us just in that particular time frame. I want to say like 92, 93, something like that. Our favorite records to listen to in this sort of hellish chaos squat were like the first Down by Law record, Peg Boy Strong Reaction, No Effects, White Trash, 2 heaps.
Okay. Huh.
I love all of this.
All great.
I just wasn't expecting. I thought you were going to say like I thought you were going to say Hawkwind or something.
I know.
Down by Law.
I know.
I'm really intrigued by the No Effects. I wouldn't think
this is storytelling. You know, it's at its best. It's like, well, he didn't say that. And like Bad Religion, we just loved like getting drunk to like this like melodic sing-songy hardcore. And so, I remember like getting some singles from this French band who were kind of doing that, but like they were kind of DIY like anarcho-punk band, but they were obviously doing the same things in Toulouse, France, and they were completely influenced by like the American melodic hardcore.
That's cool.
And just the other day, I'd forgotten about this band. Like I hadn't thought about this band since the 90s, and suddenly right in front of me was their LP, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I've got to get this back because I think I sold it when I came to Japan, and this is a good looking record. This is a punk rock looking record. There you go.
Cool. I'm not familiar with this, but I mean, I love early 90s melodic
it's
punk.
Kind of an obscure band. The funny thing about this band, though, it's actually crazy. I've kind of mentioned No Effects and Bad Religion. This band did a split 7-inch with High Standard in like 90, and High Standard is like the biggest like melodic punk band from Japan. They're huge. They're like the sort of
I've heard they'll play like one show a year or something.
I mean, they're not really going anymore. But it's just funny that like it was one of the first things that High Standard did too, and an HG Fact flyer just popped out of this copy too, with like all this band's 7 inches on it, and like it says like the Geschpenst first EP is up and coming on HG Fact. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this band is like it's just like melodic hardcore. We just used to call it melodic hardcore, and we loved it. This is a French band doing melodic hardcore, which sometimes sounds like Astakask a little bit, sometimes sounds like Funeral Oration, and then sometimes sounds like Bad Religion and No Effects, but it's sung in French, and I just love it. It just took me straight back to the 90s, and all the lyrics are like super political, like Anarchy in Pink City, just like a DIY punk band playing melodic hardcore, and I just think it's amazing.
No, that's a really interesting, Mike, because now I'm kind of thinking about it. It's interesting thinking about listening to that stuff before the year 1994, before Green Day and The Offspring, where, you know, the idea of that stuff's just like, it's just another kind of underground music.
Completely different.
It's not, especially if you're outside of the context of America, where it becomes like more of like a Southern California kind of bro identity. And again, I like a lot of that music actually, but like that's funny to just think about it. Like, yeah, because especially you have Leatherface in England or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't shameful to be into like that stuff like back then. It was like just another one of the punk musics that was hanging around and we'd listen to, and I just love the fact that this like DIY punk band with anarcho punk lyrics was just putting out these really super melodic, really fun to listen to records, and I love it. And they're on this label called Panx, Panx, which was like a super DIY label. Did like a 7-inch and a fanzine series like in the 90s, and I mean, who was on that? I mean, Moss Icon were on one of the things.
Oh, I love Moss
Hated.
Icon.
Go from New York on one of the records. The Youth Gone Mad. Anti-Dogmatics from Spain were on one of the records. And
a lot of emo, it sounds like, kind of, at least based on the Hated and Moss Icon.
They did a lot of different things and all together, and like didn't care like what genre of punk it was. It all went in there, and people just didn't really care that so much back then. We didn't slice things up so much.
Well, as someone who like is a little younger, so didn't experience those bands before they were in the context of like the really commercial music they ended up being in. You mentioned Astacask, and I remember like, so when I was younger, I like was a kid in the 90s, so I knew all those bands and I liked them, but in the commercial context. Then when I got more like as a teenager, I started getting into like hardcore underground punk. Like Astacask was like a band that people who were really into underground punk liked, and when I first heard it, I was like, oh, I get to listen to I can get away with listening to Rancid, and it's cool. It just didn't sound that different to me. Yeah, but I knew like all these cool people who like that band, and in the back of my mind, I was like, I know what this is, and I know why you like it, and that's fine. But you don't think you can,
You're not gonna pull one over.
I thought that was like a good. That's the band that bridges like cool underground punk and like just really fucking catchy.
It's
like,
so true. If I was to say, "Hey, this sounds like Astacask," people's ears will prick up. But if in the next sentence I said, "But it sounds like NoFX too," people, I'd be like,
kind of like a politically, people use the term dog whistle. It's like
but there was tons of this kind of music back then in the 90s, just like melodic hardcore. There was millions.
Yeah, you mentioned Peg Boy. I mean, that kind of stuff's great. I shamelessly love that. I mean, I still listen to like Propaganda a lot.
Sure. No shame in that, and it's all that old Swedish stuff was like the trall punk and stuff. It's like super catchy. It's just like 77 punk, like sped up, like super catchy, melodic.
For sure.
That's my last pick. French punk is in vogue right now, with all the French oi and like stuff. But like these
very much
mid-90s.
Yeah.
Punk.
Litige, have y'all heard Litige from
Yes.
France?
I've got 2 of their LPs. If they're great.
They're so good. Yeah. So good.
Yeah, it was just seeing that in the racks. It was like, oh man, I got to get this. Like, it takes me back to the 90s. All right, there you go, Billy. What's your
final pick? I'm dressed for the occasion. It's Meanwhile, Remaining Right, Silence. Yeah, I don't know. It's another Swedish record. It's just another great example of like not being afraid of like super simple some song structures and riffs, but really leaning into powerful, clear production. And you don't need a lot; you just need the right stuff. And I think this record is like a real distillation of that in many, many ways. Yeah, and like Mike, like you said, like Disc Change, meanwhile, like that's the stuff. I don't have a copy of the Disc Change LP because I'm a fucking poser, I guess. But
I think that the 7 inches are almost better than the LP, though, right? The split with CFDL.
Oh yeah, and Excremental War. Excremental War has, when you open your 7-inch split with After War Scars, I mean, it doesn't get like much better than that.
Okay, so I've said this in the pub before. I often say that song is the best non-discharged D-beat song of all time.
You'd be hard pressed to find a better one.
Got this like it's kind of it does something to you. It's got like an emotional power about it.
Yeah,
in the way that it's written.
I mean, it's just like this band. Like I saw them last August. I took a train to New York and saw them, and just seeing how cool they are and how little of a fuck they give was really inspiring. Because like when you make records like this, you don't really have to worry about shit else. You can just be a dude from Sweden who knows how to execute something, I would say, pretty perfectly. But yeah, this is the Farrell Ward reissue. Yeah, it's a great record. I don't really know what else to say about it. The songs speak for themselves.
I don't know why I always think that Road to Hell is my favorite, but
I fluctuate.
Right?
Yeah. I fluctuate, and it's really crazy that because like so many of these songs that they played were still in their set, and even like they don't really have a bad record, so you really can't like they have different sounding records. One of their more recent EPs that came out like in the early 2000s, it's like I think that they tried to have a little less production in their record because it says something like produced but not too much by the band or something like that. But yeah, I just love this band. Really great record. I mean, I could have pulled any Meanwhile record and talked to y'all about it a lot, but yeah, really good.
Yeah, they're one of my go-tos if I'm in a D-beat.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of mood.
they just get it. I mean, they just have that like whatever Junior Kimbrough has for his respective world, like they have for their world.
Of D-beats, they are.
Yeah, yeah.
Many people are saying that Junior Kimbrough is the Meanwhile of.
Yeah, but I think like what I'm getting at there is like there's just
no, I know what you mean.
Yeah. There's like some truth to it too, because like sometimes when you hear something, it just feels like authentic or real. I don't know.
They have a groove. I know they have a groove and some like heart and soul to them, which I find a lot of D-beat bands like don't have.
Sam, you would dig it. Yeah, I think you'd fuck with it really hard because the emphasis is really on the downbeat for it, and it's like
I like
their like timing signatures are like straightforward, but like the Kinko is the drummer, I think, and his feel is just a lot different, and I think it's a lot more interesting than a lot of like standard like D-beat drummers.
He's the Bill Ward of D-beat drummers.
You know, one could say the Bill Ward.
Okay. I mean, I gotta listen to them more. I'll be honest, I didn't know them until they played the US last year. And like you mentioned you were going. I have a few other friends who I know went up to see them in New York. And what did they play? Skullfest too? Something like that? Yeah, okay. So that's how I first heard about them was like last year, and I like them. I need to listen to more. I don't know what material I've listened to, but I listened to a handful of records in the past year because of that. And the Bill Ward comparison is, I mean, come on.
Well,
now, I really have
to. Yeah. I mean, and it's great too because like they're still playing. They'll still come over and play, and most of the records are like $10 or less. So. Yeah. And they're just top shelf, excuse me. But yeah.
I'll have to give them a more. I mean, I like what I heard for sure. I'll have to. I wasn't being sarcastic. Bill Ward of D-beat is like, okay. I have to give this a little more attention.
Yeah. Oh, and Sam, you'll like.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to wear shorts on stage, Sam. So they don't give a shit, which is awesome.
Rocky and the Sweden drummer, shorts and sandals on stage.
Oh yeah.
That's sick.
I love it. I think I texted Billy or something.
Yeah.
Night or the next
their sole concern is making sick records, and they accomplish that like in spades. So.
Sick.
All right, Sam, what's your last pick?
All right. I'm a little at a loss for how to set this one up. Let's say in the last, 15 years for sure, maybe more like 10, at least in the US, like crossover seems like it's really been huge. Everyone's aware of Power Trip. I think you guys probably have heard of that band before. But and I like them. No diss to Power Trip whatsoever. I like especially their second LP. I really liked.
Yeah, they're great.
And I like a lot of bands that are doing like straight down the middle. There's this band with like some of the people in Destruct in it called Enforced from here. They're pretty straightforward. I think their songwriting is clever and I enjoy it. That being said, straight down the middle crossover is like not my favorite thing. When it has to be, it's kind of like garage rock. It has to be really fucking good. For people that really care about it. But so this, maybe not this record, but definitely this band, I feel like kind of kicked off the crossover explosion.
Okay, I know where you're going.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So Iron Age, Sleeping Out. Fucking love this record. Fucking love this band. But so that's to say that I feel like not this record, but this band kicked off the crossover explosion. And yet this is just so much more like creative and interesting than 99%. And not all crossover has to be. Like I said, I like, certain genres that can be not generic, that's a negative term, but like middle of the road, crossover, DB, garage rock. I like that, but I'm pickier about it. But you just a little creativity can go a long way. And I feel like this record is just like incredible. I don't expect everything to live up to it, but I just wish there was more like metal influenced hardcore, especially thrash metal influenced hardcore that was like weird and cerebral and just like, I think I listened to an interview with the singer of this band and he said during like the 3 months that they took to write this, the members of the band took mushrooms every single day.
And they were listening to a lot of Flower Traveling Band, and they
covered it on that 7-inch. Yeah. Right. Which I mean, I'm not saying you need to take hallucinogenic drugs every day. I wouldn't. I can't do that. But the results that adds up when you hear the record, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can believe it.
That's like a one of a kind record. You can't really. That's like a
it is
kind of a record.
Mm-hmm. I love like
one of the most respected bands too. Like I feel like most like anybody who knows them, like well, yeah, of course Iron Age is good. Like I feel like they're one of those like bands that like Power Trip did early on too, like a great a great uniter of people. You're the one who really got me into them. Like I already liked them, but it was once we kind of started playing music together that I really.
For me, yeah, it's a big one for me. It's a big one.
Amazing, man. It's like it's the same singer as in Eternal Champion, right?
Yep, I saw it. Actually, I saw Eternal Champion this year, and they were fucking amazing too. Like
I like them too.
I don't like the kind of music they play, but I like that band. I don't know how else to explain it. I got you. Yeah. I don't.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, I also love that's perfect. I was gonna say, I love looking at like pictures of Iron Age over the years of their time as a band. When you look at them, like early pictures, the singer's like shaved head, maybe like not wearing a shirt and wearing like camo shorts, or he's wearing like a sleeveless shirt or something. He looks kind of like New York hardcore, shaved head hardcore guy. And then later on, he's got like
a sword,
super long hair. He's wearing like armlets or whatever I don't know. I'm not a fan. Leather armlets, I believe they're called. Yeah. And like I don't know if he was carrying a sword yet. Maybe that's like later on with the Eternal Champion. But I just love the evolution of his look. Like you look at like early Iron Age and later, it's like super different. And I also think he was like straight edge, but no, whatever. But like. That guy definitely, his vibe changed significantly in the course of like 4 years, and the band's music also changed because their first LP is pretty like New York hardcore sounding.
Yeah, I'm not too keen on it. That one is just, like I said, lightning in a bottle, can never be replicated.
For sure. Yeah. The first Iron Age LP has 2 or 3 like really, really good songs, I think. But yeah, the second one is their best. I really want to listen to more of like the or I'd love to hear like a remix of the Saga demos. I don't know if you guys ever heard that. It was like a demos for their would have been their third LP.
Oh, cool.
That got released as like a tape and like a flexi. It's just unlistenable to me. Like the mix is really weird and like it's just not well recorded. But
paging jack control.
There's some cool ideas in there for sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Glad you guys like that. I love that record. It's cool. Yeah.
Killer.
Well, I was feeling unsure of my last pick because it feels a little anticlimactic since I guess it's the last one of the night. But it does appropriately tie into your pick, Sam. So I was like, am I going to pull in a different one last second? But no, I'm just going to stick with this one.
Cool.
This is my most contemporary record because it came out 5 years ago. I usually try to have something newer, like a new record, but it just didn't happen this time. But this record came out in 2020. It got totally kneecapped by the pandemic, like many bands did. But I think it just really, I think this band would have really had a bigger connection if they had been able to play gigs. I first saw them like 2 years before that record came out, the record in question. And they started out as basically just a hardcore punk band with
I know what you're
with the trappings of black metal. So I saw them randomly at this tiny venue in Richmond. I can't remember what the place was called. Flora, I think it was called.
Oh yeah, I remember Flora.
A really small place by Banditos.
Didn't Forward play there?
No, okay, I'm thinking of a different place. It wasn't Flora. It was. Anyways, I know what show you're talking about. So when I saw them, it was like 3-piece ripping hardcore punk, but with like cool, like wood statues, like where it's like tied together. It's like very like folk horror kind of thing. But I remember talking with them after the show, and I was like, "Wow, that was really good. I really like the black metal aesthetics." And they're like, "Yeah, we're really leaning into that with our next music." And that is this band, Skeleton.
Yeah.
Self-titled. Very unoriginal name, pretty unoriginal album sleeve.
That's a cool record. You got me into that. Likewise, Iron Age.
Fucking rips. It to me, also from Texas, which is what made me think of the Iron Age kind of time. Sure. It feels, I guess it's not like I wouldn't say like quote unquote true black metal music. No. It's almost more like kind of like blackened thrash metal with like some like stumpy hardcore punk parts on it. There's some like they'll have some DB parts or some like Motorheady kind of parts. But it's like full on like kind of black metal vocals. Really, really cool band. And like I said, this came out during the middle of the early pandemic, like I think like May, when we all thought things were going to be coming back any day now. And yeah, it's they've played a handful of shows since then. They've put out one thing where it was like a tape where it was like what I didn't want them to do, which was like go more black metal to where it was like raw, blown out cassette sounding, like I can't even hear the riffs kind of thing, which that there's so much clarity in this where like all the riffs are just really memorable. There's some cool melodic elements to it. It never gets too bogged down in annoying trappings of thrash metal or annoying trappings of black metal. It's kind of just like great hardcore punk metal music. And I really like their punk stuff too. Their 7-inch Pyramid of Skull. When I saw them, I don't buy merch at shows often just because I'm kind of stingy with what I spend money on. But I was like, I need to buy the record, I need to buy the shirt, I need to buy it all because I was like so blown away by this band. So I've been like a cheerleader for Skeleton ever since. And yeah, definitely check it out because I think it deserved a lot more praise. It had a little pop on the internet, but they couldn't play gigs. So.
Yeah. Are they still a band? I don't see them doing much. I think I saw them play a show in the last year though, or something.
Random Texas shows. Yeah. They'll do like they played a show with like Pentagram recently. They'll do like I think they did a show with Mammoth Grinder.
Right.
It kind of sounds like whenever somebody like some notable band wants to play like come through Texas, they'll like ask them. But cool ass band. Cool ass record. So I wish I had some like big like record where we all go for my last one.
No,
I like that record.
Have to be like that. It's like goes where it goes. It goes where it goes.
I feel like you mentioned like when we first started our band, Mikey. You mentioned I told you about Iron Age. It's kind of the same deal. I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
Record when we first, and then we've talked about Plan 9, which is like our local big record store. I think like you told me about it, and I remember distinctly like the next day I think I found it for like $5 or something at Plan 9. I was like, oh, I might as well. And then it's maintained like in my rotation. I do really like that record. It's cool.
I for years have low rated Plan 9, but now I've kind of been coming around lately. I was like, it's actually pretty sick.
It's like
where it's like you go in there and you see every cool.
Oh, of course.
And that's great. I mean, that is so cool that we have that in our city. But it's kind of cool. You go to a different store where you're like, oh, you got to do a little more digging, but you might find something really cool.
Plan 9 is like Richmond has a lot of good record stores, and most of them are smaller and boutique for the most part, but just definitely smaller. And Plan 9 is our one like big independent record store where it's just like everything. It's a lot.
Yeah,
of stuff.
General interest, kind of.
Yeah, but that's where I got this Agnostic front record. I got a really cool Celtic Frost single from there the other day.
You'll find bargains there. It's not like every time you go in there you're not going to find something that you're like bragging about, but pretty consistently they'll have something that's underpriced by internet standards.
Dude, I got
members of Unseen Force working there.
There you go. Tonight's show is sponsored by Plan 9 Records.
It was confusing to me when I was a kid because the Misfits stuff is on.
It is confusing. Yeah,
it was really confusing to me as a kid finding out about both and not understanding how they went.
Well, Danzig, I think I ran into a guy, Patrick and I were at a bar, and he was like, I was Danzig's driver when he played here in the 90s. And we're like, all right, dude, what the fuck ever, but like, he was like, they like drove by, he was like carting Danzig around Richmond, and Danzig was like demanding to go to all these fucking weird bookstores and shit. And the guy was taking him, and they drove by Plan 9. And Danzig was like,
did he get mad?
He was like, I almost sued those motherfuckers because like they took my label's name.
Yeah.
What's so funny about that? And again, I'm a huge Danzig guy, but also he's like really fun to make fun of, kind of like how he did with Metallica, where it's like, dude, that is a public domain film that you took the name from. Same for his fucking logo. He stole from a Marvel comic.
Exactly.
It's like,
all right. Let's not give any more airtime to that dwarf.
that little man with the big voice.
Let me announce next week's show, because this is a big announcement, because next week we're doing it on Saturday night, not Friday night, which I've not done before. The reason being I have to work next Saturday, so I'm going to do it on my Sunday morning, so it's going to be Saturday night in America. It's confusing. So next Saturday, May 31st, 10 p.m. Eastern. Change your calendars, change your file faxes. It's not Friday next week, it's Saturday night. Dan Granado, Steve Mangione, Matt O'Blennis, a nice trio of lads coming on next Saturday night. I'll remind everyone again in the week, but so make sure you tune in. That was a great show. We had a good time, right? Great.
Yeah, good time.
Thank you.
As always, I got a list of records to check
always
out
fun,
Yes, me too.
We're
We're going to probably stick around for a few minutes and talk about Danzig. So, hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Always appreciate it. See you next time. See you next week. Until next time, stay healthy and